Here we come, ready for a new year. Some people make resolutions in the New Year's, and if you ever have, you realize probably for most of you, you have never done it. Because according to a Forbes study that they did in 2023, only 3.4% of those that start actually continue through the year. So people make resolutions on all sorts of things. They make resolutions so that they may do better in their health, that they may do better in their jobs, that they may do better in their relationships, that they may do better in so many different things. But the one thing that is in common whenever somebody wants to do a change is because there's an experience of, I just can't do what I'm doing anymore. And there's nothing special about the new year. But it does just give people that chance to go, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to hit a reset button. I'm going to be able to do something differently, and then over time, we fall away and we go back into new patterns, and our resolutions fail away as we start to work harder and harder, and it doesn't work. But what if beginning with God wasn't about making a relationship? What if truly what God is calling us to isn't a resolution, but actually a renewal? What if instead of working harder, God is actually asking us to trust God deeper? That this reset means something so that Jesus can speak directly into those times in our lives when we go, I just can't do this anymore. Anyone ever been there before? And we cry out and we know there needs to be a change, but it seems like every time we try to change, it just doesn't work. And so sometimes we just say, I give up. And we might say things like, well, that's just who I am. That's just the way it's going to be. But rather, as we lean into Jesus, he speaks into that, and he makes us realize that what we need to strive for is not a list of goals of things that we can or won't achieve, and try to achieve and won't, but rather he is asking us into an invitation to live life. In the Gospel of Luke, we heard where Jesus said, if you deny yourself and follow me, you will find life. For those of you who try to save your life will lose it, but for those of you who lose your life for my sake will find it. So what is this life that we're trying to find, and what does it really mean to deny? Many times when we think about denying ourselves, we might think of, sometimes it's a punishment, isn't it? It's like when you were kids, everybody had something else taken away. Nowadays, the biggest denial is, we're not going to let you use your phones. No more electronics for you. When I was growing up, it was no television. Oh, that's it, right? Those were the denials we faced. It was something that was a punishment. Or maybe even we think of denying ourselves as something that it's a loss. Well, I'm going to have to give this up. And it's never a good thing, right? We never go, oh, I'm going to deny myself of chocolate. Isn't that wonderful? And you love chocolate. Or, you know what, I'm going to deny myself of peanut butter, but that's one of your major food groups. Right? What would it be? We deny ourselves of whatever, and we're like, but that is not the loss that Jesus is talking about. The self-denial that Jesus is talking about is actually releasing this false sense of self and control that we tend to cling on to, that we try to save, that we try to manage, that we try to protect, because we want to do things. We want to make sure that we have control over things even though we don't. That we want to protect this image of who people think we are, and people better never know what's really going on, because if they did, oh boy, they wouldn't look at me the same. I have to give up the sense of what success really means. It's not about obtaining the most toys. It's not about accumulating the most amount of wealth, because we can't take it with us. You know, I heard a wonderful joke about someone who tried. A guy died, and he left in his will that he wanted every single cent that he had made put into his coffin, because he was sure he was going to take it with him. And he was positive that that would work. Well, right there, before the funerals, they realized there was no money in there, but they saw the wife come up and put a piece of paper into the coffin. After the service, people asked her, said, "I thought he wanted to be buried with all his money." And she goes, "He was. I put a check in the coffin. Let him cash it in heaven." Right? We can't take it with us even though we try. And we want to have security, but security is really a falsehood. It doesn't really exist. And so we start to cling to things that don't bring us life, but rather Christ is inviting us into a relationship so that we are called to let go of these things that we believe are true but are actually false. And by doing so, we live into a life. We deny ourselves of the things that do not bring everlasting peace, and we start to accept for things that are different. We hit a reset button to take us back so that we can be, as Gospel of John put it, born anew, born again, reset, ready to go. And that is the gift. And in the Gospel of Matthew, he said, "Come to me, everyone who is weary, and I will give you rest." Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes in life, we just carry a few too many things. I don't know about you. We pick some things up. It might be a hurt word. It might be a bad feeling. It might be an action that we never really intended to do, but we keep on doing. It can be so many different things that we carry, and it just weighs us down. It's like, I remember when I was in seminary, I lived on the 3rd floor of an apartment building. My car was across the street, and of course I lived in the 3rd floor, which was the farthest away from the stairs. And I'm going to tell you what, I did not want to make that trip more than once. So you should have seen me when I came home from the grocery store. I put every single bag I could on both arms and carried them up. I was younger then. And my arms hurt. But I, by golly, was going to carry them as a badge of honor. Look what I can do. Well, I'll tell you what, it made me weary. And many times, because we do not give up what we need to give up, because we end up keeping those things we don't need to keep, instead of denying ourselves, we hold them as a bag of honor, maybe, instead of a badge of honor. And we want to keep carrying it with us. But Jesus says, "Come to me, and I will give you rest. Put on my yoke. Put on what I want you to carry, not what you are carrying." And so what we end up doing is seeing that this rest that Jesus is offering us is not an escape from what we carry, but rather it's a trust to realize that what God has for us is something that is light and something that is easy. And so that this reset becomes a choice. It becomes a choice of recentering with God. It becomes a choice of being able to look and see, what is it I'm holding that I don't need to hold? What is it that I'm carrying that maybe somebody else gave me that I just really don't need to carry? What are the assumptions of myself that really aren't based in what God wants? What if I actually am willing to give up the things that take my time so I don't have time to spend with God? What if I realize that the yoke that Christ has for me has nothing to do with carrying, but has to do with releasing? So the key question for us then is, what do we really need to stop carrying so that we can follow Jesus freely and accept the life which Jesus has for us to do? In the moment, I'm going to lead you through a covenant of renewal. In other words, the covenant is that which we don't promise God that I am going to be perfect, but rather we promise God to trust. We promise God that we will trust, that we will do what we are asked to do. And it's not because we have confidence in ourselves to be able to reach this goal of being able to say, God, I am giving my life over to you. Rather, we are trusting in God's keeping power to keep us faithful to the covenant which we will lift up. So in a moment, I will ask us to renew, or to maybe for the first time, make a covenant with God, not because of everything that we do is right, but because God's grace always invites us to begin again and hit the reset button. This isn't something that is done once and then forgotten. Rather, this is something that is done and redone and redone. We might do it on this day, but it is something which we will continue to do, hopefully all the days of our life. So today, God is not asking us to try harder, but rather to trust more deeply.